All right. Are we live?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
If we're
Are
if
you?
we're
Can
lucky,
you
we're
do live
live.
on Face or on Odyssey now? Is that
Yes, I.
working for you?
Yeah, it's working pretty well. It's good because
You're
it's
one of the few.
the one link that I can when I go into podcast number 2 of the day, the link transfers over. So
Hmm.
the people just stay on the same link and then they get to you know, it's kind of interesting. Let me see. I took a break last week, so hopefully people are all raring to go. Um, but yeah, how have you been? My beautiful
Very
on-air
busy.
friend.
I have had I have had a number of events occur. I think since last we spoke. Um, I bought land. I went to a
Mm-hmm.
conference. Um, uh, Found and bought land. I should put that because we had searched for a number of different pieces of property, and then we went to this exit and build land summit that was put on by John Bush and I
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
some kind of live free academy or something that he's putting together. But it was all about people building intentional communities, which is one of the things that we want to do, and buying land, exiting the city, and building the future. Basically, is how I interpreted it, and it was
Yeah.
great. It was really good.
Doesn't quite beat accidental communities though. Oh shit, we're all a community. I did not plan this at all. Well, it says that
Right?
there's a couple
Yeah.
people watching here on YouTube. Let me just check Odyssey before we get going, officially going. And as I've said before, every time I think I have things figured out, I see whatever Ken Bozak is doing, and he really does not seem like he has things figured out, but he really has things figured out. And so one thing he does is he has this several minute long intro uh, thing that he plays for every live show.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
it was just annoying to me. Like, why do I have to watch all this stuff? Part of it is a great infomercial for his Ken token. It's like late night
Sure.
TV. Like, you gotta get the Ken token. It's only $9.99. Like that kind of stuff, which is
Uh-huh.
it's hilarious shilling. But the other thing though is people take a long time to actually tune into the stream, and so
Mm.
what he
Yeah.
does, and so he's just playing this stuff, you know,
Yeah.
and
It's the rally call. It's a hey everybody, let's do this. He wants an audience. It's good. Yeah, he is a good. He figures shit out, man.
yeah.
Like how is, and it's a very pragmatic approach.
Let's see if people said hi. And Hilawi says the one and only Chuck Williams. Great to see you.
Ah,
I'm
Hilawi,
not. I'm not
an ever
seeing.
dedicated listener, I think, to your material.
Yeah, he's a good. He's a good guy, or as they call him in the UK, a top cunt. You know, but that is what it is. Let me see. I wonder why the Odyssey stream is not working.
Mm, that's
Stop that
disappointing.
and start it again. It's worked flawlessly. Just as we're going to talk, just as you're like, oh, you're one of the few people. Just you start talking smack about Odyssey, and I'm like, I'll show him. It's working really well, and then it's just like, okay, there we go. I just had to start and stop it again. Have you
Right on.
tried turning it on and off again? That's kind of like the global economy. We're turning the
Right?
global economy on and off again, right? Or off and on again.
That's a great meme right there. You
Yeah.
just made one. Somebody just needs to graphic that out, and that's perfect.
People have done. I don't think I'm the first, and people have said it in more clever ways, but it applies.
Yeah.
All right, enough
Yeah.
people watching. Hi everyone, welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown with Mister. You know, I guess I got the clarified buttery voice, but Chuck's got the real buttery voice, right? I got kind
Yeah.
of like the
Yeah.
light one after you boil off some of the other stuff. I got the ghee voice. He's got that good old Irish Kerrygold butter voice. So
You never fail to make me self-conscious of one of the things that I have no control over.
why self-conscious rather than hopefully in a good way. I mean,
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's
isn't your
cool.
Twitter Chuck's conscious stream? A little bit of a
Yes.
hypocrite here, huh? Anyway,
Yeah, so why not be a little self-conscious?
be a
It's
little kind.
it's actually, yeah, a
Change
weird
it.
guilty pleasure being
Change it to
self-conscious.
Chuck's self-conscious stream and just start
Yeah,
tweeting negative things about yourself all the time.
that sounds great.
That'd be
That's a great
hilarious.
idea. I'm writing that down right now.
All right. Let me roll the intro. So, hey everyone, welcome back to the Digital Cash Rundown. It's been a little while, huh? It's been
Yeah.
2 weeks. I used to do this show every
Oh,
single 2 weeks, by the way, when I started it. And then for a while, I just stuff bunched up in the news cycles too much. And I was like, oh, what if I did it every week? And so then I started doing it every week and do the back-to-back podcast stuff. And yeah, I mean, it it turns out to be pretty good. It's just that last week, got busy, got burned out, got a bunch of stuff. Just like, you know what? Let me take a break. Taking a break, right?
right.
I'm not like on contract to like do one of these. I just decide I'm told people I'm going to do things, but everyone has a vacation except for self-employed people. So, you know how that goes.
Yeah, yeah. Saying no. I've been going through a round of reminding myself that sometimes I have to say no to things in order to not be burned out.
Yeah. Well, that's for sure. I need to be better at that. But anyway, let's dive right into the stuff. So, um, digital currencies won't impact U.S. sanctions, Treasury exec says. So, basically, in a CNBC interview Wednesday, what's her name? Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo said the U.S. dollar will remain the dominant currency in the world despite the increasing popularity of cryptocurrencies, and basically point out that they won't be able to get around, sanctions and things like that. So it's a pretty like softball kind of thing, if I'm honest. But what's
Right.
your quick take on this one?
Yeah, well, first off, any government agent that is speaking about the economy, first off, is almost definitely lying. But the
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing about any government agent speaking about the US economy and lying is they can measure the degree to which they're lying. And so there
Mm-hmm.
are degrees of lies. And in this case, while we can't I think in a lot of ways they speak what can be like marketed as true, but I mean, the bottom line is the dollar
Mm-hmm.
and all fiat is going to go away at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just trying to hold on to whatever position they can and deny the existence of any threat to the risk of the dollar for as long as they possibly can until, well, who knows when. But this experiment is about run its course. This whole dollar fiat experiment since we got off the gold standard in the 1950s, and sanctions and all of those kinds of political trade war games that they play often are precursors to like actual physical wars. And I have a gut feeling in this case that I don't feel like we're going to go that far. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to get that far. So, this, like you said, it's a softball. It's like, I'm not really worried about this kind of situation again, whether digital currencies impact US sanctions or not. To me, it's just a noise. Like the US sanctions are going to be bunk. However, there's going to be more activity growing more exponentially
Yeah.
fast in the cryptocurrency space that no government is going to be able to capture or sanction to whatever degree they think they can. They're just going to policy themselves out of the future. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you have your sanctions, but we're just going to go over here to this other system that doesn't
Yeah.
even recognize your sanctions. So I'm just like, okay, play your political games, but that's only going to last so long.
Yeah. That's a funny thing. Is like, it's funny because I'm learning slash reminded so much of the old system the more I learn about the new system. It's because of the contrast. So I forgot about sanctions until that just now. I was like, oh, that's
Hmm.
right. People did that. That was a thing at some point in the past.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
And
It's like the big way of saying you can't do that. I'm going to tell my daddy, and here's
mm-hmm.
daddy enforcing.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate "you have no power here" kind of meme, where
Yeah.
just it's funny how I mean it's funny because on the one hand, I'm pretty sure governments and the powers that be are invested in cryptocurrencies and have some control over mining software nodes and stuff. They're in there somewhere. There
If
are, or
they're
there,
smart, they are. If they've
some of
been
them
in
are.
denial, they've legislated or policied themselves out of being in a privileged position like that.
Well, let's just take an example. A U.S. example, of course. How many legislators at the higher levels, D.C. legislators, like the House of Representatives and the Senate, how many people have talked positively about crypto or say they own some? It's dozens at least, right? And these are the
Now, yeah.
old boomer kind of people, and this is what the people who are opening their mouths. And then you have like
Hmm.
people like Ted Cruz who like want to make every DC gift shop take Bitcoin and dumb stuff like that. But whatever. But like there's
You can
it's
take
out
anything to
there.
extreme, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the elite power brokers of the world, and I'm not saying that as a compliment at all.
Right.
Those are the
Yeah.
people who walk away astronomically richer than they come in usually, and they don't make that much money for their salary. There's something
Right.
going on.
Right.
That's why
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
like
Who was that?
the Nancy Pelosi portfolio tracker. Have you
Pelosi.
seen that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, oh, follow
I
her
haven't actually seen
investments.
that, but if you could send me a link, we definitely include that in your show notes because I want to see that.
Yeah, I'll look that up. But I've seen it. Like people have been trying to track because they're like, man, she's she knows something. It's the ultimate insider
Yeah.
trading. It's
Yeah.
so
I mean, as soon as I saw the meme that she was like the greatest investor of all time since 2010, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. More exposure.
yeah. And the funny thing is, you have all this at the same time as the same types, the same system. A lot of the same people, maybe even, are talking about, oh, it's no good. It's a challenge. It's all this kind of nonsense. And for example, our brave, happy birthday to this future president person, Hillary Clinton, came out strong
Mm.
against crypto today. She's like, it
Oh,
threatens
did
the
she?
U.S. dollar hegemony and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yes,
Well,
yes,
she's gonna toe the party line, as it were, but it's not
hmm
really the party line. It's the
it's
well,
every
I mean, I
both
suppose in a
party
way,
line.
if you're a socialist or a communist or a Democrat,
Hmm
or anybody involved in government, really, that would be the party.
Yeah,
They don't like Bitcoin. They don't like crypto. Because it takes away their control and, in their eyes, their power. And that's ultimately the story that they're not talking about is the reduction of their own power. And that's all
hmm
that they keep saying over and over. This isn't going to affect our power. This isn't going to affect our power.
yet it
Meanwhile,
does.
their power is being diminished by the network effect of the masses of people who are investing their time, effort, money, and intelligence into this new space that's now going virtual and beyond the planet, with the metaverse BS that I have mixed emotions about,
Yeah, we'll
for
definitely
better
hit
or
on
for
that.
worse. Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, basically, think about the concept of like global financial hegemony. Like, isn't it weird to think about? Can you imagine if pick a crypto like Cardano, for example?
Mm,
Like,
mm,
what if the nation of Hungary, it's their money and they control it. And if you use Cardano, then they control. Like that's a weird concept to the crypto world, right? It's a project,
right.
people use it, but to have a thing where like the money that everyone runs on, like Ethereum, is like run by the U.S. government, and it's like
Yeah.
that's so like backward. I mean, or
Yeah.
rather, it was just the present day, like a few years ago. But now it's just the idea of that is like backwards.
Well, there's an interesting corollary there because the one thing that I am currently my operating conclusion is the closest thing that
Yeah.
we have to geographic boundaries in cryptocurrency is literally the branded labels of difference. That's all
hmm
that we have. Because there is no centralized entity and they're not geographically located anywhere, and we
hmm
know about the effects of network effect and how important network effect is, well, you're essentially opting into communities and societies of behavior when you buy into or use that platform, that currency.
hmm
That's the closest division that we have. Okay, now you got to play by these rules. Look, Ethereum. Oh fuck, $150 fees. I guess I got to do this
It's
because I
cheap.
got to push it here. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
But
that's the thing. It's
over here on Dash, hey, everything's on ice, everything moves more quickly because that's what it was
Yeah,
designed
zip
for,
zap zap.
right?
And that's a funny to think. It's funny to think about crypto systems as a corollary for government systems or country systems, because like let's just say Ethereum is like you pay so much, but it's like everything's on and you kind of have to use it. And
Yeah, it's like living in New York.
yeah, and then it's kind of like because everything's wrapped in Ethereum, like everything else you want to use is like wrapped in Ethereum, and then it's
Hmm.
costs a lot to use that, but like it's kind of a corollary for U.S. financial hegemony, sort of, is like
Hmm.
it's expensive. You spend a lot of money on bombs and stuff to use this thing, but it kind
Well,
of like
yeah,
has its tentacles on everything. And if you aren't in the Ethereum ecosystem, you can't do much. It's like if you don't have that shiny blue passport, or you're not in the good graces of the country, then your life is difficult. It's kind of like one of those types of things almost.
it is. It is. And just like corporations become, either wedded to or subject to the governments,
Mm-hmm.
Coinbase is having to deal with that with Ethereum, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
same kinds of ways. Coinbase has all their USDC as an ERC20 token on the Ethereum platform, which means if they want to move USDC, it's going to cost Ethereum fees, and so they're subject to it. And they really don't have a choice unless they move, unless they
Mm-hmm.
leave
Yeah.
Ethereum, which is going to make it really difficult for a lot of their constituencies. So
Yeah,
in the
and
same ways, yeah, it's the same kind of hooks.
under this corollary, you could say almost that uh, Binance is like China because it's like just like the knockoff. You just copied the U.S. system, and it's like, but it's
Yeah,
cheaper
yeah,
because it's made in China. It's cheaper. It's like
yep.
it's kind of the
Not
same nonsense.
necessarily as reliable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got all those kinds of things, and so
Hmm.
it's kind of funny to think about like sanctions. The modern equivalent of sanctions might be currency delistings, right?
Yeah.
Because
Hmm. Yeah.
it's basically
At the
like you're
exchange
block.
level. Yeah.
Yeah, and even the decentralized exchange level, because it's not like overt censorship, but if you don't add support for cryptocurrency, that's kind of like economic sanctions. And so, for example, a lot of companies and protocols and stuff like that have deployed economic sanctions against North Korea, aka Bitcoin SV, right? Because people, Craig, what did they say? Orange man bad, Aussie man bad. People don't like Craig Wright, and so they don't like some of the stuff that the BSV people are doing. So now they like cut off economic ties to
Right.
that community, and so it becomes more isolated and suffers lack of network effect because of that.
Right.
And
And
so,
notice how political that is by nature because you're dealing with
yeah,
people and it's the people making the decisions, not necessarily
hmm,
the code or the best system or the best whatever.
yeah,
It's not a
and
meritocratic system.
hmm, and it's funny how like similar these like how like history is repeating itself in a completely different way, where this is just magic internet money. It's not like actual countries. And yeah, it's pretty fascinating how people haven't changed, even though what people are playing with are a little
Right.
are a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I like to look at the principles of these things and see how these principles like play out and this whole idea that, people in government and politics are after
Mm-hmm.
power and they're always feel, that's how they judge everything. Where's the power? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what they think sanctions are. It's a version of power in the political game. But
Yeah.
and they're just deluding themselves and denying the fact that their power is being diminished. They're talking more to themselves, I think, than the public in this case.
Mm-hmm. So next one is about President Tokayev of Kazakhstan, basically saying that crypto is here to stay. It's an important part of the future, et cetera, but needs more regulation. But he threw in this thing about saying that they see practically no benefit from Bitcoin miners, and they see practically no return despite being the number two miner in the world. And so,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
isn't it? See, when I first read the headline,
Hmm.
it seems to imply that it's the country that is the number two
Yeah.
miner, but I
In
think
the
it's that.
context of his statements, the lack of cryptocurrency regulation results in, for better or for worse, very little tax revenue being captured by the
There you
government,
go.
despite the industry's
Exactly.
sharp growth in recent years.
Right.
Ain't that
Right.
something?
So yeah, it's not the government doing the mining, and that's the thing key to point out here. It's not the government doing this mining that's contributing. What did they say? 18%
Mm-hmm.
of the share, which is a significant number. What you might
Yeah.
want to ask yourself is what makes it so attractive that miners would want to locate there? And maybe it is in fact the low taxes. And that's,
Yeah.
if you're near Kazakhstan and you want to mine and you want to remain legit, maybe that's what you do is you go to a place where it's just that on the books that the taxes are low and they're not going to be able to change it for X number of years unless they get a hustle on it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And even
Yeah.
if they did change the laws, how are they going to enforce it? That's part of the deal too.
The thing is, I'm wondering if it's just that the miners pay practically nothing because they have practically no profits because all the coins that they get, they sell enough to cover expenses, which could be taxed maybe, but the rest is just unrealized gains. They're just hoarding it. And so maybe that's why what they're
Yeah,
talking about.
I'd be willing to bet that's a big part of it. And depending on, I don't know how Kazakhstan's laws are with, securities or whatever crypto, but
Mm-hmm.
if you do a like for like exchange, again, there's no gains there until you cash out into what? A fiat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where they measure the power is when you come out into a fiat. And I think more and more people are realizing, especially in the mining industry,
Mm-hmm.
there's a path to success here where you never have to cash out your profits. If crypto goes the way that miners and many of the rest of the world thinks it's going to go, there is a future where these cryptos outlive governments and you never have to cash out into a fiat under the control of government and thereby never pay taxes to said government. That's where I think a lot of people are landing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure the government's going to have the entire overarching message of all these headlines and everything together is that crypto is big. It's too big to fail now. It's there, it's everywhere. And governments are trying to wrap their heads around how they're going to adjust to this new system. And the system just it's a new system and it leaves them completely out. So they're trying to figure out either how to stop it or what I think they should do is find a way to, get a piece of the pie. So, for example,
That would be intelligent. Yeah, we could talk about that.
well, let me just hit this idea real quick because talking about NFTs later. That basically
Yeah.
NFTs spiking all over the place, but it's concentrated just a few people. I don't really care for this headline. I just want to talk about NFTs. So
Hmm. Hmm.
imagine what if the government decided to just issue all um, vehicle titles on an NFT, right? It's so
Hmm.
you get one, and then what happens when you decide to sell it? You put on NFT Marketplace. The NFT Marketplace is the car marketplace. You bid, you sell it, and then the government gets a cut of every single car that you sell. I don't like that because I don't want the government getting all this money. I don't want to get any money. But imagine like that's a way you could be by like running the official like NFT titling marketplace type thing. You could kind of in the code have your I guess your revenue. And I believe that successful governments in the future are going to have hard coded in profits from the crypto system, such as being part of it, like a stakeholder of the DAO, and just getting a certain part of the money or whatever. However, it's going to work. Oh, I'm pretty sure that that's how they're going to be able to do things. Because the old system of just like sending people a sternly worded letter and trying to find cops to arrest someone if they think that's just not going to fly in the future.
Yeah. So, in the initial case where like first off, if you try to set up an NFT market for the titling system, that's that
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna that you're gonna get a certain percentage of the population to be like, yes, all right, upgrade. I don't have to go to the DMV, whatever. Like there's all kinds of like great stuff that could come out of that, and there's a lot of reasons just to do it just for that simple reason, right? But long-term thinking and society-wise
Mm-hmm.
thinking, one of the things that's kind of missing there is once you give government the control over that system, if there's no other competing system, well, guess what? Those thugs are going to take advantage of it and milk it for all it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
and that will destroy the system. Basically, nobody will want to use it anymore if it's
Mm-hmm.
overly corrupt, right? Once it goes to a certain degree. So they if they were able to get that control, if they were smart enough to get a bunch of people to actually help them build it from the crypto community, who
Mm-hmm.
may not have the most supportive government leanings to begin with, um,
Mm-hmm.
then there would have to be some kind of competing market. There would have to, like, I mean, I look at it like in a lot of ways. You'd have to look at the post office, right? The post office in America has laws that you can't charge less for a similar product, and
Yeah.
that's a protectionist law, so that FedEx and the UPSs and the FedExes of the world can't take out what the United States Postal Service does and replace them entirely, cheaper, better, faster,
Mm-hmm.
for various reasons, and then you just start getting into the political game all over again. But nevertheless, there's value in public record, right? Having
Of
tracking
course.
numbers to carry the corollary, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
important and valuable to know who has control over property according to society. The problem is, I
Who
think, with this
controls the
whole big
spice?
situation, yeah, who controls the spice? And the challenge is, though, that it, if it's always the government that is in control of
Mm-hmm.
saying who's in control, then the government's going to want to take a slice of control as much as they possibly can all the time. And that's just because that's just how government works. So, and by on the flip side of that, that's also why free markets work, because free markets work because people share information, and the free market basically whittles down information into the metric necessary for that market. In most
Mm-hmm.
cases, dollars. Like, what's the price?
Yeah.
And once you have a price, and you can assume that all the public information is kind of baked into that price. You can't always assume that, because there's always manipulations that go on, but it's not 100% manipulated. There's some percentage, depending on how free the market is, right? Having that publicly available to everybody, having a coin market cap, as it were, is
Mm-hmm.
valuable. To know who owns a car is valuable. I don't know if people know, but it used to be actually public record. You could go and look up, with a simple request, anybody's plates on any car and get their information, get the registered owner's address and name and all that
Yeah.
information.
And
That used to be
somehow
very
no
easy
one
to
figured
acquire,
out. It took them way too long to figure out that was a bad idea.
right?
Way too
Right?
long. Yeah.
Right? So
What
obviously,
else?
like
If I
that,
where someone lives, like, oh, jeez.
right?
Mm,
So, I mean, so the government's not going to do well at this stuff. They're not going to protect
mm,
individual privacy. They're going to overreach. They're going to try and control too much. Free markets, by comparison, always work better, faster, harder, and less expensively. And they're because it's already the gate. You can't unring this bell. Crypto's already out of the
mm-hmm.
gate. We already have markets. We already have decentralized everything. Governments are just on a slow trail to death, or some low level of operation for the people who continue to think that government is the right way to do everything. And yeah, I hope the world wakes up pretty soon, that there are better ways to do a lot of things, especially economy. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot better ways that we can do this. We can do a lot of things better, but we're also doing things better with law and real estate and property, and eventually come all the way down to those little
Mm-hmm.
tiny things that most people do on a daily basis or a regular basis, like register their cars or order a meal, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's where we're headed. There's no changing that. That's where everything's going to be going, because the system is just better for record keeping, for public record keeping. If you want a
Mm-hmm.
public record, that's fucking use a crypto. There's nothing better for it.
Yeah.
you know?
I that's pretty and just the amount of inefficiency with government losing money all the time is pretty
Yeah.
crazy. Uh, but what thing I thought was interesting, um, when I'm going back to, Ken Bozak, the way he does stuff, like a lot of times the way people run things like like they charge for a subscription. You got to charge to see this, or they try to get money in donations, like I do and stuff. And he sells everything. Like he just sells NFTs
Ken?
and yes, and FTs and
Yeah.
fungible tokens for his
Yeah.
channel.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's kind of funny how like imagine if the government did the same. Now, let me give a little allegory here for the state of New Hampshire. There's this thing in the state of New Hampshire called the Hall of Flags, which is in the State House, and it's like a basically a historical display. It's like a museum type thing. It's a historical display, and the government runs it, but the government doesn't get any tax money to run it. So what they do is they sell whiskey. They sell commemorative whiskey bottles every year to like to like raise money to maintain the Hall of Flags.
Sure.
And it's pretty hilarious that like, you know, one of the 50 US states is just like selling hooch to fund their little, you know, their display. It's glorious because it's like that's how small and restricted the government is in this state. That being said, like, can you imagine on a positive note, what if, you know, a state, a city, whatever it is, sold NFTs, right?
Hmm.
And imagine if it's just like the NFT would let you into all public, you know, let's just say there's like public displays like museums or whatever. It's like it's almost like a museum pass and other things like that, but it's also just a cool commemorative NFT. And if you buy a limited run NFT, you're funding the government that way. And then if you buy it early because people really want one of these, then it gets traded and speculated on, and the government makes more money off of like NFT speculation because they did this, and then they don't even have to tax anyone. Because imagine, like, no, we got rid of taxes in our town. We do everything on NFT sales. Like,
Yeah, dude,
why the hell not?
that fits right into. Well, I've heard a couple of people talk. This isn't an original idea of mine, but
Mm-hmm.
somebody I was listening to a podcast and somebody was basically pontificating. What if we
Mm-hmm.
had voluntary taxes? What if, if you paid enough money, the president would come on and say, "I'd like to thank Chuck Williams for his contribution of blah blah blah."
Mm-hmm.
Right? You get you get prestige. You get the privilege of having your name announced on all the channels, to the world. You get utility out of it, and
Mm-hmm.
those are the basic things that we can expect on top of NFTs, which basically we could say debatably started out as just simple art projects, and the
Mm-hmm.
art alone had value in many communities for these NFTs, and that's where we're at right now, right? But there's also a whole lot more coming, like that kind of privilege and prestige and utility. I could see that, buy your weekly presidential announcement NFT. You get a date timestamp, you get your name on it,
Mm-hmm.
you get an announcement, you get a record in some public ledger, and when the road is paved in front of your house, we'll put a little plaque on the bench that we place at this geographic location because of your contribution. Yeah, there's tons of, I think, and people will still call that government, but it won't be government,
Something
I
way
think,
better.
at that point. Yeah, it'll be something else because I mean we're going to have to come up with a new word for these self-organizing
DAO.
communities that a DAO, a way to look at it,
It's gonna be.
decentralized autonomous organization or decentralized autonomous corporations or communities, or there's a lot of different things. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, in these cases, what we might end up doing is blending back the um, the geographic references. Right, we'll pull out of the abstract and we'll have people relocate into these collectives where they share
Mm-hmm.
values, and that's what brought them together. It wasn't just, hey, I was born here and 80% of humanity doesn't move 20 miles from where they live. No, it's, hey, we all were transient and we decided to collectively come here because of these specific values. That's a whole nother thing when you get a whole bunch of like-minded individuals in a place. You get things like New York and the financial trade of stock exchanges blowing up. You get San Francisco and the what would you call that? The boom of the tech bubble, and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a whole bunch of reasons to get like-minded people together, and shit, watch what happens when that happens. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, on just the last bit on the NFT specific thing, imagine, um, like, places like Florida tend to be a little more, like the government of Florida tends to be a little bit more signaling its freedom stuff these days.
Hmm.
There's a lot of posturing about that, and there's a lot of legitimate pro freedom stuff happening in Florida. I'm not getting that wrong, but I'm just saying there's a lot of like, a lot of posturing. But like, the Wojak meme of like the bearded guy. Yes, that meme. Like,
Oh
so you're
yeah,
just gonna this
I love that guy.
like what if they just sold, like, what if Ron DeSantis sold a limited run NFT of like the Yes Dude, but like him? Like, yes. And it just like, wouldn't you freaking buy one? You know how many people would buy one of those NFTs? And it
Those, I
just
mean, that's a
like,
really good idea. Yeah,
it's
I
just
think
to
a lot of people
signal,
would.
it's to signal, it's tied to, under Ron DeSantis' leadership. Again, not trying to be political in it, but like under his, they kind of like started a big fight back against wokeism. And it just
Right.
like, or big against big government control, whatever you want to call it, whatever that was.
Sure.
However, it turns out in the future, that's a piece of history, and if you mints NFTs of that based moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
much money
Exactly.
could you make for the state just doing that? And people would love to give the government money for that.
That might be true. That some percentage of the population would definitely do that. You talk to me and my friends though, and be like, I'm not giving. If any of that money goes to the government, I'm not voluntarily buying that.
Yeah, that's true.
there's
But
there's a lot of people that would just flat out not. But at the same token, a lot of people are buying, what is it, NFL and NFT tokens. Like these are
yeah,
coming. These NFL and NBA, I
NBA
think,
Top
is what
Shots.
I've
Yeah,
heard about. Yeah. So yeah, I
but imagine this
definitely.
though.
But I don't
If
want to
you're a
encourage people to give money to the government. That's all.
but if you're a shrewd investor though, what happens if you're like, you see that they come out with this like limited run NFT thing, and you buy like as many as you can right away,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
then everyone wants some, and you flip them, and of course
Yeah.
the government profits from the flipping too, but like you
Right.
profit more. You're using
Right.
Ron DeSantis is making you rich by putting his little yes like
Right.
meme spinny little NFT thing out there that you can just sell. And
Yeah. You
on the
just
other
got to get it
side,
in front of the right eyeballs.
um, I kind of thought this was a little ridiculous when I read it, but I'm starting to come full circle on it. Is the mayor of Miami was talking about they're having their Miami coin that they're issuing, and if you stake it, you get like dividends in Bitcoin or something
I
like
heard
that. And
about that. I'm like, oh great, here we go.
well,
Yeah.
but
So what are they doing?
well, I don't care. But let's hear me out. Like this is
Yeah.
how things could be done much better.
Oh yeah.
So what if you let's just take the current like taxpayer model. If you're a tax-paying citizen of a city, they issue you a governance token. Like they issue you tokens, and then you use
Mm-hmm.
that to vote. And then you have to buy them, right? You have to pay that you get in exchange for being a taxpayer. And then it lets you kind
Right.
of vote on how the city works. And if you stake them, right? Then if you stake them, then you can get returns on that. And then imagine, you know how like outside investors will come into a city and invest heavily in the real estate market if they see the city is going somewhere. But
Right.
imagine that, except instead of investing in the the physical buildings, invest in the city itself. Invest in the city token, and knowing it's going to go up in value in the future because people are going to be killing for a piece of that token and the voting rights that come with it and all that kind of stuff. And imagine being able to invest and then invest in people, and so then the actual people, the citizens, make money off of the city being invested in instead of just you buy up some rich guy buys up a lot of real estate and then your rent goes up and it sucks for you. Instead of that, when the rich guy buys your token, he pumps your token and you can sell it and then make off a lot of money because you were part of this city. You're a taxpayer in the city and you helped make the city where it is, and then you get a return on your investment. And that can you imagine a taxpayer being an investor instead, and you actually get a return
Yeah.
on your investment? And
It's really attractive.
you know,
Yeah. There could be some downfall. I mean, the only concern that immediately pops out at me is like it sounds like taxi medallions to a large degree. You know about those, right? In New York.
yeah, yeah, to a
So
certain
you
extent.
create a scarce supply, but then either you create taxi medallions or you
Hmm.
create infinite inflation of these tokens, which is going to devalue any early investors to some degree. And
Hmm.
having that, finding that balance is really hard. And I wouldn't trust a government to do that, even at the city level.
Yeah,
Maybe a free market. Maybe if it had free market mechanisms like baked into
Mm-hmm.
the token itself that was that couldn't be clipped, that couldn't be shut down, that couldn't be,
Mm-hmm.
turned off by any individual, that couldn't be manipulated, or the issuance changed without notice, or all that, there'd be a whole bunch of like clauses. Then I could really see it working well in the context of a city. I'm actually trying to design something that might work for a city like that, but it's got some different mechanisms.
Yeah, Chuck coin. Or if you start
Nah.
minting like a based Chuck, yes, NFT, I will buy one.
Nice. Yeah, good. You're on my list, dude. I'm choosing 1,000 people. I'm going to hand off 1,000
Mm-hmm.
people to start their own communities. You'll be on that list.
Well, so think about this from a take it to the company perspective instead. There's always this talk about like the workers built this company, you didn't, and there's a lot of like back and forth kind of stuff like that. But imagine this: what if all these salaried employees of a company get paid half in salary, half in governance token slash
Hmm.
equity in the company, and
Sure.
so they get dividends from profits because they own a piece of the company. They're paid in
Right.
that as part of their salary. Oh, and
Yeah.
so
Paid out weekly.
yeah, paid like literally paid out weekly in
Hmm.
that, and not just and not just employees but customers. Instead of rewards points for your Starbucks stuff, you're paid in company shares, kind of in
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
in ownership tokens. So if you've like the frequent customer that like basically funded a third of this coffee shop's revenue in its first few months when it's struggling, you get like a big pot of these points, and that's equity in the company you helped build by being a customer, and you get to kind of have a vote in there. Of course, the employees get paid in that. If you want to sell your tokens to someone else, sure, you can sell them to someone else, but especially imagine if it was done through like the NFT sort of system where there's the resale fee that goes back to the original. So, for example, if you're a employee, you get, NFTs. So then even if you sell your equity in the company, if you keep selling it around, then because you had to make bills, right? Let's say you're a
Hmm.
starving, mother of six with no husband in life, or whatever the story is, you have to sell your stuff all immediately. But then as the company gets rich off of your hard work, as like with everyone else, the people who bought this off of you, who speculated on, oh, this is company's going places, I'm going to buy it off this poor lady, she still gets a kickback of the success down the road.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
sort
I'd
of
really like
start,
that where you get
you,
paybacks
yeah,
for successive sales and that sort of thing.
yeah. And so you kind of like close the economic loop and just make everything like everyone should be an investor and a stakeholder in anything that they put stuff into.
Yeah, it really incentivizes being first to anything and everything that you can be. If that is available to you as a reward, even if it's just,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'll bust dishes if I can get some of them NFTs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is
I can
funny
see
because
that.
I kind of did that. There's this bar run by Free Staters up in Concord, New Hampshire, and I helped build it. I like poured some concrete and stuff when they were building the place, just because I lived down the street, but also just I wanted to say that I helped build the place, and I did. I didn't get any NFT
Hmm.
for it though, because that wasn't a thing back then. But in the future, I would. Like, I would go out and like help break ground at the new homeless shelter and get some little NFT for it. And then later, it's just like a great triumph of like turning a bad city around and helping a lot of people. And then that commemorative NFT, I get to just sell it to someone else, and it makes money, and everything
Yeah.
works out.
Absolutely, dude. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't at least say once on the show,
Mm-hmm.
NFTs are huge. They are absolutely huge. And I might foo-foo
Mm-hmm.
on like this project and that project, and I might joke around, but this is a significant movement in an already very significant movement. This has put turbo fuel into a rocket that was already lifting off, that is cryptocurrency, right? This is like the second stage of launch after we've already cleared orbit. Like there's all kinds of power baked into these NFTs. People, this is going to
Mm-hmm.
draw people in from areas that they didn't even know that they were dealing with an NFT. They didn't even know that they were getting into cryptocurrency when they bought a this or they got a that or they showed up for this and got this scan this QR code and have this app on their phones they don't even know what to do with. Oh, that's an NFT. Oh, cool. I got 3 of those. That's pretty cool. And then
Mm-hmm.
fuck, it's worth $12,000. Jesus, fuck, you know.
Well, I mean, it
And
really goes.
inflation's going to do that.
The meme of free NFT with every Happy Meal is probably going to be a reality very soon, and it's not
Yeah.
even a bad thing. I'm not even kidding. It's not like a bad thing. Like
I
you
know.
go,
Yeah.
you go to your, vegan cafe or whatever, and then like the limited run kale chip nachos or whatever. If you buy one of those, you get an NFT during the month of like
Yeah.
Nacho November or whatever the hell they want to do. I don't know. I'm making stuff up.
Yeah.
And
The Church
then,
of
yeah,
Consumerism is not going to let this go by.
yes. But that's the
They're
thing
going
is
to get
like
in on that.
people get it's tokenize all the things, right?
Yeah.
Everything that we value, and with all value being belief, everything we believe has value is now going to have a digital immutable record associated with that value. Every
Right.
sunset we watch is going to have an NFT of it, kind of, maybe. I don't know. Not necessarily. That might be a little too much. But everything that was like phenomenal, that there's going to be something about that. I mean, I'm honestly, how many people won't have first in like engagement party NFTs? Like she said
Yeah.
yes, NFT, and then
Yeah.
they have it on their little
Right.
NFT play or wallet or whatever, and be like, this is
Dude.
my priceless memory. And then if they pass on or something, their estate says, here's when grandma and grandpa met. Here's their little
Right.
NFT. Sell
Yeah.
it on, and then the estate keeps getting the money and stuff like that. Like I don't
That's
know.
right.
It's like
Yeah.
it's gonna be a very weird
That's it.
world. And it's funny is I a lot of people. Probably gonna have to wrap up the rambly podcast at this one, but a lot of
Yeah.
people are probably thinking that sounds like a hellscape. Like, oh, it's so cheap. Everything is just digitized and sold and all this kind of stuff. Oh, everyone's
Yeah. My wife
speculating
would be
on.
one of those people.
Yeah, and there's some element to that. I'm sure. Like, there's nothing super rosy. Nothing's perfect. However, what I'm seeing is money is just a communications vehicle for value. And money has left a lot of money on the table in the past. It's just like
Hmm.
only this can you actually feed yourself off of. Only this that people value can you feed yourself off of. But the 95% of the other things you value, you just do for free. Sorry, screw you. Right? You got to like figure it
Yeah.
out. But like, what if everything is monetized? Like, what if,
Or could be.
how?
Or could be.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, this is exactly where we're going. And it's a beautiful future, and I'll tell you why. It's because everything that could be valued by any other human now can be uniquely claimed
Mm-hmm.
and uniquely reported and uniquely shared at an individual basis. You can create and build your very own brand of you. And
Mm-hmm.
you get to do it. Like to whatever degree you want to do it, you can express your values or you can express no values. You can, and because everybody has something to offer, everybody's going to it's going to be easier. Let's put it that way. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
easier for you to find your value matches and your tribe and your people and your place where you can make a contribution should you want to do so. And I think this is where the chasm of people who do for themselves and people who want done for them, the entitled versus the entrepreneurial,
Mm-hmm.
um, this is where the entitled lose poorly, but they've been winning for the past 5 decades because everything's
Yeah.
been kind of handed to them if they just followed the playbook. Now there is no playbook. You are the playbook, and you have to play yourself this thing, and you got to do it out in the world. Otherwise, you lose.
Well, let me leave us with two visions. One is imagine not having a job, just making a living being you, just be you all day long, and then you like there you go, you feed yourself off of that because like literally
That's it.
everything you do, you capture your life. People speculate on your sunset that you watched or whatever, and like stuff goes, however it works out.
Yeah.
You
No,
just
well, you
go out
took
and
the photo. You took the original photo from that geolocated coordinate, and
mhm.
that there's your NFT unique generation variables.
Yeah, and on the other side, by the way, Splock says Chuck, good to see you, man. Always enjoy your point of view. But another
Right
comment
on.
I wanted to read off as the last one was Daniel Polka says, divorce NFT?
Yeah.
There.
Well, I mean,
People will.
relationship NFT in general. I mean, all kinds of relationships, human relationships, all human relationships will be NFTable. I have a business relationship with them, and I have a friendship with them, and I have a, it's all about prestige. And that prestige
Mm-hmm.
token might get you some privilege or even some utility. You might get a backstage pass if you have X number of friends with this kind of relationship in this kind of community. I
Yeah.
mean, God, it's fucking crazy
It
where we're going.
it's all going to be there, and I want everyone to jump on the new money because otherwise it's just like you're leaving it all on the table. Like eventually it'll all be there, but like just
Yeah, you don't want to be a
get
Luddite
in
right
there.
now. You really
Yeah.
don't. You don't want to be one of those guys that's going into the printing presses and, throwing wrenches into the
Mm-hmm.
numbers and poo-pooing on Bitcoin and saying that's not going anywhere and government's going to control it. You really,
Mm-hmm.
really don't want to be one of those people.
Well,
That
anyway,
history
how
does
can
not speak well
people
of them.
follow you and find out what you do and all that kind of cool stuff?
Yeah, so definitely check out Float, flote.app. That's my current employer. I work for them full time.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing a major new launch Q4, if not Q4, Q1, re and instantiation of the entire flat platform. Definitely check that out, flote.app. You can follow me on Twitter, Chuck Williams 37. I
Yeah.
tweet about
Yeah.
I
It's called
am getting a lot
Chuck's.
into philosophy.
Yes, it's called Chuck's self-conscious stream.
Yeah, Chuck's conscious stream right now. I might change it to self-conscious stream, but yeah, and I just pontificate about philosophy and tech and product ownership and software development, which I've been in for 20 some years. And on Float, you can find me Chuck_Williams. Those are pretty much the places that I maintain. I'm also on Facebook, but I'm kind of reserving that for friends and family and people that I've met face to face. So.
Yeah, and then you can also buy his NFT. Not yet, but
Not
maybe
yet.
soon.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe soon.
I'll start pumping my project when I finish the app well enough that people can test it.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for watching. It's a Dash podcast now. We have the Crowd Node guys on. It's going to be a great one. So if you want to watch that, if you're on YouTube, just go to the channel and then another video will pop up in a few minutes when we get everything figured out. And if you're watching via Odysee, you just stay on the link and go to the bathroom, whatever, have a drink, come back whenever you hear people talking again. Oh yeah, we're back on. And that's about it. Yeah, it'll be everyone else just have a great weekend. It's been a crazy fast week for me. And I don't know why you needed to know that, but whatever. Thanks very much, Chuck, for being on. And yeah, I will see you guys either very soon or next week.